When Tola opened her eyes, she discovered a dusty notebook in her hands. It brought her back in time and revealed hidden secrets about the Otokun waterside community. A long time ago, the community lived in peace and harmony, but that peace came at a high cost. There was a covenant in the past at Otokun waterside that everyone followed in secret every year, but never mentioned in public. The river demanded 12 virgins each year to purify the territory, establish peace, and produce tremendous riches. And it was said that there were no poor men in the community at that time. Mothers would dress their daughters for the ceremony every year, regardless of how inconvenient it was or how painful it was for them. Some moms would try to hide their daughters, while others would send them to a faraway town in the hopes that the river would not find them. However, no matter where they were, the river would always find the daughters of Otokun. On the day of the ceremony, the girls would be dressed in white wrappers, with clipboards full of hair balanced on their heads, and they would stroll silently to the riverbank building at around 1 a.m. midnight. The girls would cry and plead, but their fate was already determined. A woman with a demonic appearance would emerge from the water and pull them away. They would be taken far into the water and never seen again. Their mothers will watch and weep quietly as their daughters are taken away. No one will know whether they are dead or alive. Sometimes the women would cry and will also pray to the gods not to bless their wombs with female offspring. The men would rejoice because such a sacrifice would bring more foreign investment into the community and make them wealthier. The community continued to adhere to this severe culture until 1 year, when it said no. It began with a few mothers who adamantly refused to let their daughters go, and then the church became involved. The women would bring their daughters to the church on that holy day, a place they thought would shield them. Gradually, girls were no longer brought to the river to be sacrificed. Instead, they were sent to school to learn and contribute to the community. With time, the men also joined the movement against female sacrifice. The community and the river's covenant were thus broken, and nobody ever visited the river again. Anyone who dared to go there never returned alive. 2 years after the covenant was broken, little Amanda, who was only 10 years old, vanished. She was never located despite the community's extensive search. All they could discover were her little sandals, one of which was caught in the mud, and the other of which was floating slowly in the river's shallow border. Everyone assumed she had been kidnapped or drowned, but nobody realized the river had started plotting its vengeance. After reading the notebook, Tola's body shook with dread as she wondered, "What have I gotten myself into? Why did I even come to this community in the first place without asking questions? And what is my role in all of this?" But sadly, there was no one there to provide an answer. As though she were unaware that anything was wrong, she carried on with her work. For a while, there were no negative stories about her wig hurting anyone, and Tola's glow was still the most popular salon in Otoku and beyond. But then something odd started happening again. Her returning clients began to disappear. The numbers were initially only 1 or 2, but they continued to rise. Tola didn't give it much thought, figuring they had either moved away or become too busy. But every time she attempted to contact them, their phone numbers were either disconnected or unavailable. The salon was still crowded though, but this time it was with fresh customers who were just there to buy wigs. And once they did, they never came back. One afternoon, a barefoot woman burst into her salon sobbing and bringing her along. "My daughter wore your wig and vanished," she screamed as she pulled Tola's hand firmly. When the woman fell to her knees and started crying, I begged her not to leave that night. She claimed that something was calling her from the river. Tola was speechless with amazement. She gathered herself and said, "But how is my wig responsible for her disappearance? Why do you want to ruin my business? Please leave here immediately," she said furiously, but deep down she knew that something was wrong. That night she sat in her bedroom thinking deeply. Should I simply shut down this salon and run away? But if I do, a daze will make me useless and I'll be begging just to eat. What should I do? She had a dream that night. in which she saw her previous clients in gorgeous wigs moving slowly toward the river. They appeared to be quite tranquil. They didn't shout or flee. The following morning, her bed was bone dry, but she awoke gasping for breath and coughing as if she had taken water. When she opened her salon, she was drawn to the silver box that Adais had given her. Right before she was about to hand the box back, she set it on the floor and ran her fingers along the velvet lining. To her astonishment, a thin scroll of wood slipped out from a hidden tear in the fabric that her fingernails had caught. The pocket was drenched in a fishy, dark, sticky liquid. It took her some time to unroll, and the picture on the scroll, which depicted 12 faceless women, each sporting a different wig, walking single file into a vast, gloomy river, gave her goosebumps. She started to freak out at that point because it was the same nightmare she had last night. After she finished braiding a client's hair, she then made the decision to go outside and throw away some of the trash. But as she did so, she noticed that she heard someone shouting her name. "Tola, Tola, it's me, Madame Lucy." Tola stopped and turned to see who was calling her. To her amazement, it was Madame Lucy, her devoted client, inside the river. "Madame Lucy, what are you doing there at this time of night?" she asked. "I am on an assignment to welcome the others. They are almost here," Madame Lucy answered with a smile. "I said that I should come over and say hello." She responded, "Assignment? What are you talking about?" Before Tola could finish speaking, she noticed 10 of her old clients from the neighborhood heading toward the river as if they were under control. They were well-dressed and had long wigs. Tola attempted to shout out to them, but they didn't answer and went right into the river after Madame Lucy, who was now sporting a fishtail. Tola put down what she was carrying, went inside, took her key, and ran. That night, she made a hotel reservation and invited a few pals over because she knew she couldn't be by herself. However, this was only the start of her demise, as weird occurrences began to occur in Otoku over time. The parents began to cry over their lost kids. The issue began with Oliver, a stunning young girl who was sent to the local market to purchase groceries. She went, but she never returned. Men complained that their wives went out and never came back, but nobody knew what was going on. The neighborhood was suddenly seized by fear, and women ceased leaving their houses after 6 p.m. However, throughout all of this, Mama Eretti was observing and fully aware of what was going on. She was merely biding her time before acting. It's been a month since Tola last opened her salon. She had made the decision to never return after her previous encounter, but on that fateful day, she gathered her courage and went back. However, at roughly 7 p.m., just as she was about to close her salon, she heard a knock on the door. Thinking it was one of her customers, she opened it without hesitation. However, the first thing she saw when she opened the door dried saliva from her lips. It wasn't Adais, it was the Queen of the Seas herself. She was half human and half mermaid, with eyes that reflected the weight of the oceans, and skin that glistened like wet glass. Tola's eyes were open, and she was being pulled into the river by the hand by an unnamed woman. When she opened her eyes, she saw that she was submerged in the water. She now appeared to be half human and half mermaid, and she was surrounded by a group of women with shaved heads. She could identify a few of them, and Adais was also there when the Queen Mother herself emerged from her rooms. "Well done, my daughter. You have done well. You have served me faithfully, and you will be rewarded. But you still have a last tax before you finally join me as the Princess of the River." The Queen Mother produced a large nylon bag containing unique wigs made from the hair of her subjects. "I would like you to return and give these wigs to all the women of Otoku. I bless this community with unimaginable riches, but they turn their backs on me. After this tax is done, all the women in the community will belong to me. Be my subjects and serve me until I die. As for the men, they will endure until they beg for my pardon. I will not be at peace until I have gained control of this neighborhood. Do as I command." Tola gathered the nylon bags with shaky hands and left the very next day. Right as Tola was about to hand out the wigs, Mama Eretti stopped her. "My kid, what do you get out of being the devil's tool? And why have you made the decision to do so?" Why would you give up every woman in the neighborhood? Tola gazed at Mama Eretti in astonishment, asking, "How did you know what I was about to do?" "I see beyond the physical," she replied. "From the very minute your salon opened, I've been watching off, and today we'll put an end to everything." Mama Eretti told Tola, who followed her to her home. Mama Eretti brought out the wigs and attempted to set them on fire, but each time she lit a match, the fire would go out. As soon as Mama Eretti realized what was going on, she grabbed an anointing oil from her room and sprinkled it over the wigs. She then began to pray for more than 15 minutes, and the wigs burst into flames on their own. "The war is far from over. This is just the start," she said. "You, Tola, must never return to that salon, and you must leave this community and go somewhere else after this conflict is resolved," she said. That day, Tola and Mama Eretti spent the night in a church. Meanwhile, beneath the river, the wigs she had given Tola were the most powerful thing she possessed. And she was so enraged that she decided to handle the neighborhood herself. The following day, rumors started to spread around the community that weird-looking individuals were seen at the river near Tola's salon. Half of the neighborhood hurried to witness for themselves, but as soon as they arrived, they fled in terror. On the other hand, Mama Eretti understood it was time to act. She marched directly to the river with Tola and a few influential men of God. As soon as they arrived this time, the Queen Mother stood up herself, appearing very menacing with her lengthy black tails. And with that, the fight broke out. As the Queen Mother and the ladies she had oppressed fought back, Mama Eretti and the pastor prayed fervently. They engaged in combat for more than 15 minutes. After that, Mama Eretti entered the river herself, stood in front of the Queen Mother, and started reciting a number of Bible verses. As she did, the Queen Mother began to shout, and her body writhed about as if it were burning. Then out of nowhere she turned into a little fish. The ladies, who had been taken by the river, started to come back to themselves as Mama Eretti picked up the fish and went out of the water. Even Adais, who turned out to be Olivia, recovered, and Tola's salon caught fire on its own before anybody could see. After putting the fish on the ground, applying anointing oil and igniting it, Mama Eretti buried the ashes behind her home. The community eventually returned to normal, and the kidnapped women were reunited with their families. As for Tola, she moved to Lagos in order to start a new life. But 2 weeks later, Mama Eretti was discovered dead in her home with a note on the table that said, "I have stayed this long just to set the community free. Stay blessed, and thank you for watching."